What if that broken Wayfair nightstand in your garage could become the most eye-catching part of your garden? Welcome to ModHausDIY. This video is packed with upcycled design ideas, turning junk into rustic garden edging for small patios and tiny yards. We've included timestamps so you can jump to the parts that speak to you. And if you have questions or your own twist on these ideas, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. You might see a video on your screen, but for me, this is something more. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content, there's a real story and a real family. This isn't just a video. It's a piece of my heart. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. You're helping a small dream stay alive. You're giving a small family hope, one click at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. In the quiet of a small backyard, where cobblestones meet cultivated earth, something unexpected rises from the soil. Not flowers, not bricks, but the softened silhouette of chair legs, once part of someone's living room memory. Now, they stand proudly as garden sentinels, forming a whimsical border between order and wild growth. Some still wear chipped pastel coats of mint and cream, their worn edges catching the soft golden light like wrinkled linen in a farmhouse kitchen. Others, stripped of color, reveal the honest grain of aged wood, with brass caps glinting gently like forgotten heirlooms rediscovered. In one corner, the legs are rhythmically arranged in waves, taller, shorter, back again, guiding the eye toward tidy rows of lettuce and ruby-red radishes. Between each leg, the garden breathes. A humble watering can rests nearby, metal cool to the touch, as if someone has just paused to admire their work. Along another stretch, the edging tightens. The legs nestle close to a carpet of red dahlias and white alyssum spilling freely, unapologetically. There is no symmetry, no perfect replication, only rhythm, texture, and purpose born of reinvention. And it's this reinvention that makes it all so human. These were once legs for sitting. Now, they stand for something more: reclamation, imagination, and beauty crafted not from store shelves, but from the corners of garages and the back walls of old sheds. Anyone can do this. With a few tools, some sandpaper, and a bit of soil, you can breathe new life into what others would discard. Each piece doesn't need to match. In fact, it's better if they don't. That's where the charm lives, in the imperfections, in the unexpected angles, in the stories each leg quietly carries. This isn't just DIY. It's storytelling through soil and salvage. A way to say, I was here. I made this. And it made me smile. There's something poetic about a table no longer used for dinner conversations finding new purpose among flowers. Once resting beneath steaming casseroles and the clatter of forks, these reclaimed Wayfair tabletops now stand upright, weathered, humbled, and quietly noble, as rustic garden fence panels. Their past life still lingers in the faded rings left by coffee mugs and the scratches made by restless elbows. But here, in the gentle hush of a backyard retreat, they protect, frame, and soften. In one garden, two round tabletops split cleanly in half are mounted like shutters onto a bamboo pergola. They don't block the view completely. Instead, they filter it, just enough to feel embraced, not enclosed. Behind them, plump tomato vines stretch toward the sun, supported by twine, while nasturtiums spill over the edges like orange and yellow laughter. There's an honesty in the cracks and nail holes. They don't pretend to be perfect. They simply are. In another space, narrow vertical panels, each once part of a dining or coffee table, line a cozy patio corner. Their mismatched finishes, some sanded smooth, others chipped with charm, create rhythm against the stucco wall. Terracotta pots dangle lazily nearby, and a rosemary bush leans into the scent of quiet afternoons. The carved edge of one tabletop still shows beneath layers of flaking gray paint, like the memory of a detail nobody wanted to lose. And then there's the most humble of all, just one large plank tabletop, turned on its side, framed by rough stone posts. It doesn't need embellishment. Its rust-stained grain and warm cedar tone speak volumes. Lavender grows beneath it in tufts of purple softness, and olive branches sway behind like whispered encouragement. This is DIY with dignity. No perfect cuts, no expensive lumber. Just what's already there, worn, ready, waiting to serve again. And that's the heart of upcycling, not to erase history, but to let it lean against the garden fence and breathe in the sun one more time. Not all beauty begins in a greenhouse. Sometimes it begins in the back of a garage, where old drawers, once part of Wayfair sideboards or broken nightstands, wait quietly in dust. Their purpose paused, not yet over. And in the hands of someone willing to see more, they bloom again. On a sunny patio, a small tower of mismatched drawers stands proudly in the corner. Painted in soft sage, pale yellow, and antique cream, their edges show the wear of past lives, tiny scratches, faded varnish, an old sticker never quite peeled off. But now, they hold something new, life. Each drawer overflows with herbs. Basil in thick green bunches, thyme trailing delicately over the edge, parsley stretching for the sun. In another garden, these drawers are fastened along a wall like rustic shadow boxes, filled with chives topped in lavender blooms, sage with leaves like velvet, and rosemary tall and aromatic. A breeze moves the nearby wind chimes gently, and somewhere out of frame, a watering can still drips from its last use. There is no perfection here, only intention, only effort, only the quiet reward of something grown by hand. These herb planters aren't about saving money, though they do. They aren't about saving space, though they certainly help. They're about restoring meaning to things once overlooked, both drawer and gardener alike. And this is why it works so well for tiny patios. You don't need acres to create impact. You only need a drawer, some soil, and a vision of what could be. A moment of calm with your hands in the dirt. A scent of mint each time you pass. A dinner brightened with fresh-picked greens grown not in rows, but in reclaimed rectangles of memory. This is the garden you build when you say, I may not have much room, but I have more than enough heart. Once, these bed frames held the weight of dreams. Now, they hold something just as tender, petals. In the golden hush of late afternoon, the garden hums quietly around its newest border, an upcycled bed frame, soft with chipped white paint, its floral carvings weathered but still sweet. Once standing behind pillows and quilts, it now rises gently above a sea of daisies and lavender, a boundary not of control, but of gentle invitation. There's something whimsical here. Something utterly forgiving. The way the iron curves frame a patch of foxgloves and peonies, or how a climbing rose decides to make a headboard its trellis. The vintage frame doesn't shout, it simply holds space. Space for color. Space for breath. Space for a memory to settle in and bloom again. One garden uses both head and footboards to frame a bed, not for sleeping, but for growing. Soft pink roses reach toward the sky in clusters, while purple delphiniums sway beside them like candle flames. The soil is edged with brick, and a watering can leans casually against a wall, still damp at the tip. In another corner, an iron bed rail arches low across a gravel path. Its paint is flaked with time, its surface kissed with rust. And yet, from behind it, peonies push forward, brilliant and round like the echo of dreams that never needed words. This is the charm of shabby chic. Nothing is too broken to become beautiful. Especially not here. Especially not in the garden. So if you've ever stood at a garage sale wondering what to do with a rusty bed frame, know this. You could be framing joy. You could be planting rest. Because where some see junk, others plant a field of softness. And where a bed once held rest for the body, now it holds life for the soul. Not every gate needs to swing open with grandeur. Some invite you in with a whisper, like a memory of something half-forgotten yet wholly dear. In this quiet garden corner, worn cabinet doors find their second life. Their paint, flaked and time-worn, no longer hides imperfection but celebrates it, each scratch and faded hue telling the story of dinners served, laughter shared, and now, gardens blooming. Mounted between old wooden posts, these doors don't just divide space. They enchant it. The robin's egg blue pear welcomes you in with shy charm. Sunlight dapples through the trees above, kissing the peeling surface as hollyhocks and snapdragons lean in, eager to meet you. No sign says, "Welcome," yet the feeling is unmistakable. These gates were once inside homes, but now, they are home to something new. In another corner, mismatched panels bring quirk and poetry to a side fence. One door slatted, the other floral, with sweet pea vines curling up the handles like nature's own ribbon. The mailbox beside clings to its past, while cheerful pansies spill over in full bloom below. There's no symmetry here, only soul. And somewhere tucked between the herb beds, a single cabinet panel stands quietly sentinel. Hinged and simple, it guards rosemary and oregano like a memory guarding flavor. The seating area beyond is modest, but this one panel transforms it. Suddenly, even a tiny yard feels like a garden worth arriving at. These ideas aren't just whimsical. They're beautifully doable. If you find an old door or cabinet tossed out, look again. Can you see the gate it longs to become? Even without nails or tools, you can lean one against a post, let vines weave it into place. Add a knob, a stencil, or let nature do the work. In spaces where nothing fit quite right, this works perfectly. And maybe, just maybe, the next person who walks by won't just see a garden. They'll see a story blooming open, right at the threshold. Sometimes, the most charming gardens don't begin with seeds. They begin with a forgotten bookshelf. Out by the fence, where sunlight trickles down through the slats, an old wooden shelf leans quietly, once filled with paperbacks and porcelain, now brimming with green. Chipped corners, water-stained panels, and peeling finish don't speak of ruin here. They whisper history. And now, they cradle life. Each tier bursts with its own chapter. On the top, kale curls in ruffled confidence. Below, baby spinach stretches toward the morning light, while romaine lines up like green soldiers in tidy clay pots. A stool and gloves rest nearby, not staged, but lived in. This is not just a garden, but a ritual in motion. A second shelf, painted the soft green of vintage teacups, stands beneath a string of fairy lights. Basil, lettuce, cherry tomatoes, and red romaine nestle in rows, their roots tucked in upcycled clear trays. The wood is gently weathered, its age not hidden, but honored. From a glance, you'd never guess this was once cast aside. Now, it's a food source, a joy, a quiet triumph in a tiny space. And just beyond, a wide white bookshelf, warped slightly by rain, kissed by rust, now holds dozens of tin can planters. Each one once held soup or beans. Now, they cradle chili peppers, parsley, thyme, and leafy sprouts. Beans twine up strings beside it, and the brick path below holds muddy footprints and the scent of effort. There is nothing perfect here, and that's exactly why it feels like home. A garden made not of money or matching sets, but of reuse, intention, and the magic of slow progress. You don't need new lumber or an expensive vertical planter kit. You need a shelf no one wants, a bit of soil, some good seeds, and a little hope. Set it against your wall. Let it tilt, just slightly. Let it breathe. What once held novels or knickknacks might soon hold tomorrow's salad. Some gardens bloom from seeds. Others bloom from stories, twisted, rusted, and rising again with purpose. Here, along the edge of a quiet backyard, old bed springs, once weary from decades of dreams, find themselves dancing in sunlight. They lean gently against the fence, their spirals now cradling morning glories and sweet peas. The ironwares rust like jewelry. In the soft morning light, petals peek from coils like secrets long kept, now happily told. No need for polish, this kind of beauty thrives in imperfection. Further down the path, cucumbers and pole beans climb with joy up twin towers of rusted steel. Mattress coils, set between simple wooden posts, become guardians of green. The vines grip and spiral upward, yellow blossoms catching dew like tiny cups of sun. There's no symmetry. No plan traced on paper. Just plants, reclaiming old steel like nature taking back time. And then, the arch. A coil-bent frame rises to greet visitors not with grandeur, but with grace. Clematis vines weave in violet ribbons across the springs, spilling their color generously. Mason jars swing gently in the breeze, each holding a candle that may or may not be lit, but always catching light. This is no grand gate. It is an invitation. One that says, "Welcome. You're home now." The charm of these upcycled trellises is not just in how they look, it's in how they feel. Achievable. Accessible. Alive. With just a few discarded bed springs, a garden transforms from tidy to timeless. Each spring is a sculpture. Each vine, a voice. No two need be alike. So if you stumble upon a coil too rusted to sleep on, don't walk past it. Stand it upright. Let it lean. Give it purpose again. Your garden will thank you, not with applause, but with blooms that quietly sing your name each morning. Let me know if you'd like the YouTube voiceover script version, thumbnail prompt, or a version adapted for Instagram carousel captions. It began with a table. One that once held mugs of coffee and lazy Sunday papers, the scent of pancakes still lingering in the corners of its wood. When its days as furniture faded, it found new purpose, beneath open skies and birdsong. In the hush of a small patio garden, the old coffee table has become something more alive. Its pale green legs, chipped by time, now lift a thriving patch of herbs toward the sun. Basil and dill crowd together like friendly neighbors, their leaves fluttering when the breeze rolls in. Mint spills out over the edge like it's eager to greet the moss below. The gravel underfoot crunches gently with each step, grounding the scene in texture and touch. Nearby, a watering can waits like a companion, patient and practical. This isn't just pretty, it's doable. You don't need a workshop. Just a table you loved once, and a bit of soil. Another sits proudly by the brick wall, this one a richer wood tone, simple and sturdy. Nasturtiums lift their golden faces beside tumbling cherry tomatoes, marigolds bob along in the breeze, and the table still wears its crossbeams like a badge of honor. It's a living sculpture of usefulness and nostalgia, framed by tidy pavers and the soft hush of a container garden in bloom. Everything about it says, "Welcome home." And in the sunniest corner, the third table glows with age. White paint peels like parchment from its legs, and its hollowed center brims with greens, arugula, chard, spinach. A pair of garden shears rests beside the leafy bounty, as if someone just stepped away to grab a cool drink. You can almost hear the birds chatting over the fence. The space is modest, but the intention is grand, to grow beauty and nourishment from what once was forgotten. There's something powerfully charming about using what you already have. No special lumber. No big plans. Just a willingness to imagine, what if this old table could be a garden? And suddenly, it is. A place to grow joy. A place to start again. They were once touched 1,000 times a day, by fingers reaching for drawers, by hands unlocking cabinets. And now, after the paint has chipped and the wood they once clung to has vanished, they line the edge of a garden like jewelry in the soil. In a winding circle beneath the shade of a bird statue, drawer pulls and handles sit in a mosaic of patina and rust. Some curve with elegance, others are bent and blotched from time. All are grounded in moss, flanked by blue star creepers, like old soldiers at rest beneath wildflowers. The edging doesn't shout. It whispers, "I was useful once. I still am." Farther along a wooden garden bed, handles and hinges are reborn again, not buried this time, but fastened like ornaments. Each one different, and none of them perfect. They tilt slightly, catching shadows and sun, resting among sprigs of lavender, thyme, and sedum. The contrast of aged metal against blooming green feels intentional, but humble. Nothing forced, just found beauty. And down a sun-kissed path, the edging stands upright. Cabinet plates and pulls poke out of the earth like tiny gates, each one distinct in shape and finish. Brass gleams beside iron scrollwork. Rust mixes with gold. The flowers behind them, marigolds and alyssum, nod approvingly. The whole scene reads like a curated mess, carefully uncurated. This is the kind of project that doesn't need blueprints. You start with what you have, or what someone else has given up on. A single bag of screws. A stretch of dirt. A quiet morning. That's all it takes. Because when metal finds a second life in the soil, the garden tells a richer story, one of human touch, forgotten tools, and a beauty that only comes from being used, then reimagined. In the corner of a city balcony, a lemon-yellow nightstand leans softly against a bamboo wall. It once held bedtime novels and lost socks, but today, its drawer spills basil, oregano, and parsley into the light. No longer part of an indoor routine, it has become a tiny, thriving garden, alive, cheerful, deeply grounded. Just beyond, a turquoise twin catches the eye, its paint charmingly cracked with age. Bright nasturtiums and geraniums bloom from its open drawers like wild laughter, while ceramic mushrooms rest playfully above, reminding us that joy doesn't have to be big, it just has to bloom. And near the fence, a white dresser turned planter grows tiny carrots, soft lettuce, and proud chard in every available space. It looks like a childhood memory and a Pinterest dream, all in one breath. No fancy irrigation. No sprawling acres. Just cleverness, care, and a splash of color. That's the heart of it, making do with what you have, and letting life flourish through second chances. Even chipped furniture has a future. Even a small patch of green can change the way a space feels. So whether you're living in a brick-lined patio or a top-floor balcony, pull out a drawer, paint your story, and plant something real. There's something tender about a frame that once reflected faces, now turned outward, holding the sea. Here, against a weather-worn garden fence, old mirror frames have found new purpose. No longer vessels for vanity, they now cradle soft horizons and ocean breezes. Their edges chipped, their colors faded to seafoam and sand, each frame cradles a slice of the coast. Inside, waves carved from brush strokes, pebbled beaches made from glue and patience, driftwood arranged like washed-up poetry. And winding between them, jasmine and morning glories curl like sea mist, as if the blooms themselves are reaching for shore. The trick lies not in perfection, but in knowing where to stop. Let the cracks show. Let the salt of time speak through each groove in the wood. Hang the frames at staggered heights and let vines find their own rhythm. One oval frame holds a sailboat frozen in sunset. The seashells around its edge feel almost like a tide, gathered with care and fixed by hand. Below, grasses and alyssum gently nod in the breeze, reminding you that gardens, too, are stories being painted in real time. And in that quiet backyard corner, a full collage blooms, mirrors turned mosaic, filled not with reflections but memory. Some hold sand, others painted curls of waves. Each carries a whisper from a beach walk, a tide-pool, a childhood summer. What makes it magical isn't just the craft, but how easily it could be yours. Grab a forgotten frame. Add shells, a handful of sand, even a piece of an old postcard. Let light hit it differently each hour. Let your fence tell its own tides. Because some of the best DIYs don't shout, they shimmer softly, like sunlight glancing off water. And on the next warm afternoon, when someone glances toward your yard, they won't just see a fence. They'll see the sea. They'll see you, standing right at the shoreline. There's a quiet thrill in giving forgotten furniture a second life. Especially when it involves placing it out in the open air, surrounded by blooms, kissed by sunlight, and anchored in moss and stone. One end table, once pale and chipped, now blushes in coral pink. It doesn't hide its scars, it lets them show like lines from laughter. On top, a simple terracotta pot brims with white petunias, radiant and unbothered. But the real delight is underneath, where vivid blue lobelia tumble through the bottom shelf like a waterfall caught in bloom. Around it, gravel crunches softly underfoot, bordered by orange marigolds nodding in quiet applause. It's a corner made not with precision, but with patience, and a good eye for charm. Elsewhere on the patio, a mint green and a dusky lavender pair stand like old friends, end tables once forgotten, now proud and playful. Their pastel coats catch the sun while violas and verbena burst out above, laughing over the edges like children leaning from windows. Below, ceramic bowls cradle plump little succulents, earthy and serene. Hanging lanterns cast soft shadows on the wall behind, as if the garden itself breathes in rhythm. There's nothing expensive here, only presence, care, and a second glance at what most would toss away. And in a quieter corner still, a raw, unpainted table whispers of restraint. Its grain shows through, barely sanded, like an unfinished thought made beautiful. Atop it, a vintage enamel jug filled with wild daisies nods under the weight of their own sunshine. On the shelf below, violets and creeping phlox spill lazily from their pots, cushioned by the moss and cobblestones around them. Petals drift here and there, as if a breeze had left behind secrets for someone to find. What ties these three together isn't symmetry or technique, it's story. A gentle reminder that beauty doesn't need to be bought, and good design often begins with what you already have. A leftover nightstand. A cracked drawer. A pot that doesn't match. If it can hold soil and sunlight, it can hold life. And when someone walks past these little corners of reinvention, they might not notice the furniture at first. They'll simply pause and smile, drawn in by the flowers. And perhaps, inspired by what was once considered junk. Somewhere between forgotten furniture and flourishing herbs, a quiet transformation begins. That old Wayfair cabinet door, the one with peeling varnish and bent hinges, hasn't been tossed, not quite. Instead, it's been given the chance to bloom again, not in a hallway, but beneath the open sky. Now, bamboo rods stand where drawer fronts once were. Carefully bundled and slotted into the empty frame, they form a rustic partition that breathes with the garden breeze and softens sunlight into golden shadows. This isn't just a fence. It's a hush, a pause. A moment of privacy carved out of clutter. In one corner, an upright panel catches your eye. It's smaller than a full fence, more modest, but no less poetic. The bamboo, cut cleanly and arranged with care, stands upright within the worn frame. Look closer and you'll see nail holes, tiny echoes of its past life. Around its base, basil spills forward, dill feathers sway, and marigolds pop with orange joy. The fence doesn't shout, it simply frames the story of growth. Just steps away, a grander installation rises, a garden divider tall and proud, its frame thick and oak-toned. At its feet, ferns and hostas lean into the filtered light, and the bamboo in its center forms a rhythm that feels both modern and ancient. No screws, no glue, just trust in tension and balance. Privacy becomes poetry here. And beyond that, a little seating nook whispers welcome. Two whitewashed chairbacks now frame a bench, and between them, twin bamboo screens rest gently in reclaimed frames. Lavender sways nearby, and coral bells nod in the summer air. The structure doesn't pretend to be perfect. It simply belongs. Each build is achievable, and the materials ask for very little, some patience, a saw, maybe some twine. No carpentry degree needed. Just vision. And a willingness to see not what furniture was, but what it could become. So if you find an old shelf or damaged door, don't discard it. Prop it up, add bamboo, and let it shield a secret corner of your garden. Let it hum with wind and whisper with leaves. Because the best garden designs don't come from catalogs. They come from second chances. Not every piece of discarded furniture is destined for the landfill. Some find a second life standing tall, not as storage, but as sanctuary. In a tiny corner of the garden, stillness takes form through order, and harmony arises from reuse. The first scene greets us with a fence composed of creamy drawers and slate gray panels, once part of forgotten Wayfair dressers. Now, their faces, once pulled open daily for socks, scarves, and kitchen linen, face the sunlight. Bamboo leaves brush gently against the surface, while a stone lantern nestles in beside them, unmoved by time. The handles are gone, but their tiny holes remain, like quiet punctuation marks in a sentence about transformation. Just beyond, another arrangement tells a different story. Here, warm-toned drawer fronts rest horizontally, side by side, along a gravel bed raked clean in zen-like strokes. Brass knobs catch a faint glint from the morning light, while bonsai trees cast precise shadows against the smooth cedar tones. It's a modern take on shoji form, a low fence not meant to block, but to guide the eye gently across a peaceful scene. The drawers don't try to hide what they were. Instead, they wear their history lightly, almost gratefully. Then comes the third, a narrow patio bordered by staggered wood tones, chestnut, ash, and honey. The pattern feels like music frozen in wood, each line a soft beat in the rhythm of rest. Between moss-covered stones and wisps of ornamental grass, a water bowl reflects the sky, still as thought. The old fronts, flattened, cleaned, aligned, form a contemporary interpretation of wabi-sabi, beauty in the balanced asymmetry of reuse. These projects don't just decorate a space, they change its spirit. And they're entirely possible with what others leave behind. Old drawer faces, once overlooked, become a statement of gentle purpose. No nails, no heavy tools, just imagination, a level surface, and maybe a bit of sanding. And in return, they give back a calm you can walk beside. A silence you can tend to, one panel at a time.